If I speak too academically, things can be difficult to understand, so let me talk simply today about the reasons we are opposed to communism. I studied the communist way of thinking when I was young. It also appeared in the spiritual message of Mao Zedong. I have read his books and biography as well as the history of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. So what I say is not based on prejudice alone, but has been studied out thoroughly. That is where I'm speaking from. I was a law student, but regarding economics as well. I had classes on both modern economics and Marxist economics. So I also read Das Kapital. So you see that I am not speaking ignorantly on this subject. In fact, not many members of the Communist Party have actually read Das Kapital. I base the following on this experience. So where did the thinking go wrong? I think there was something religious within Marx's feelings. Within the Europe of the 19th century, there was a huge gap between the poor classes and the richer classes of capitalists, and Marx must have felt that something should be done about this. One example is the coal miners. Even children worked 12-hour days, and women were forced to work as well. Many agricultural areas were also poor, so the wealth disparity was considerable. In spite of this, some, like the royal family, led elegant lives. Marx also spent some time in England. There he saw the great landowners who lived in castles, who didn't work themselves, but just went fox hunting, while living off the commissions they took from the tenant peasants they had working on their land. It is true that a sense of justice led Marx to believe that the situation was unforgivable. Considering the times, someone had to bring those issues up. I think that was correct behavior. Problems began to appear at the stage when this thinking was organized into a political party and actively spread throughout the world. I suppose Marx himself hadn't even foreseen that. The main problem with Marx's thinking was his recognition of violence, as evident in the idea that if used for the purpose of communist revolution, even violence is an acceptable means. And he was very clear on this point. This became later the origin of many purges and massacres. For example, within the Soviet Union, it is said that at least 20 million people were killed, but it may have been more. I state that 40 or 50 million people were killed by the Chinese Communist Party during Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. There is a book called The Black Book of Communism that contains detailed data regarding the communist countries. This book states that 65 million were killed in China. This is a huge number. In addition, similar things took place within the communist satellite states of Eastern Europe. Again, in areas where it spread to Asia, for example, Cambodia, Pol Pot is responsible for another 2 million deaths. So what kinds of people were killed? As just mentioned, communism was the idea that a certain wealthy group of people becomes the exploiting class and steals the wealth, resulting in everyone else being poor. So if this wealthy class is destroyed and their money taken back and redistributed, everyone will become equally prosperous. However, when considered along those lines, successful people are basically just exceptions and impediments to equality. So they are killed. As a result, people with great capital and wealth are eliminated. Aside from them, even people who have returned from foreign countries and intellectuals who may have studied abroad are hated. And even within the country, university graduates, or those with even further education in graduate school, may not obey and express their opinions, so they are also killed. They begin massacres with the intellectuals and the wealthy. It is among these groups, however, that wisdom can be found. Many of them are the ones with the know-how to become leaders and make the world more prosperous. In that way, this idea that if we kill these people, society will become equal is already the beginnings of hell, and that's the problem. In reality, what actually occurred under Marxism was equality of poverty. Marx himself had seen the communist revolution as something that would happen among metropolitan areas that evidenced great wealth disparity, but it actually took place in mostly agricultural areas. It happened in the agricultural nations of the Soviet Union and China. International proletariat, unite, create nations ruled by the proletariat. Those were the type of phrases used. The reality is that it is impossible for a country to be ruled by everyone. So we will create elites, and an organization with a small number of privileged elites, the others left flat at the bottom. In addition, in China it became common to say that all one needs to read is the Little Red Book. Aside from this collection of Mao's quotations, the books of other intellectuals were often thrown away or burned. In other words, rather than giving people information, you should just make them rely and lean on you. Eventually, this becomes very similar to the way of ruling utilized by the feudal lords of old. Put even more simply, just what is it that National Socialism, or the most modern form of communist utopianism, claims? Basically, the communist ideal can be summed up in the phrase, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. In other words, everyone can just work as much as possible for them, take what they want, whatever is necessary. If that is all you hear, it sounds like a good thing. For example, applied to elementary education, it would be like each child taking arithmetic tests according to their ability. However, since everyone can get the score they feel they need, if they say they want a full score, then they'll get it. The world will be a place where you studied according to your ability, and regardless of the results, you would always get a full score. If that were the case, children certainly might be happy, but hell would soon follow. By not actually evaluating results according to ability-based effort, everyone will be the same. This idea of equality might seem like a good idea, but the result would be a lack of true education. At first glance, things might look nice, but on further reflection, if such an era were to last very long, the world would go crazy. And obviously so. During the French Revolution, much was said about liberty, equality, and fraternity. Equality seems to be one thing many people long for. However, care must be taken regarding the difference between equality of opportunity to strive for goals and equality of outcome. As I always say, equality of opportunity should be expanded as much as possible, and everyone should be given a chance. Depending on a person's talents and abilities, results will vary. Fairness should be used in evaluating them. This makes a great difference. In other words, the idea of equal chances or equality of opportunity is the same as the idea of liberty. Giving someone freedom is the same as equality of opportunity. Next, to consider the remaining problem of equality of outcome, I would ask a question. Can one really call it right if results are the same in society, regardless of how hard an individual might or might not work? It is wrong if things are not judged based on the work that someone does. This is where communism makes a fundamental mistake. If equality of outcome alone is stressed, what will happen in the end? Eventually, the principle of jealousy takes over, and people start to want to punish those who have more. Often this ends in purges and executions. Extremely bloody results have happened throughout history. Within the ideals of socialism, some number of elites becomes necessary. If that meant some great genius with superpowers, things might even go well. It might even be better than average people trying to gain wisdom. However, rather than such an actual genius, what usually happens is that the surrounding yes-men lift the leader up as if he were a genius and cut down any who oppose them. This is basically the same as a feeble-minded monarchy. Once it becomes like that, everyone starts to line their own pockets. This is why I say that liberalism is better. It is simply impossible to produce an uninterrupted line of great geniuses. Since this is the case, it is better to not wait for the great genius, and instead focus on educating talented individuals. Many talented individuals can be produced every year. Tens of thousands can be produced and put in charge as managers, politicians, and technical developers. Let them take various positions and push the country forward. Such a liberalist approach will result in success, will also lead to the happiness of many.